咁我想借呢個機會咧，同大家賣一賣廣告啦。Faith Education 咧係有好多嘅片，佢除咗講解題目之外咧，亦都幫你溫書嘅。無論你嘅目標係保命定係升 grade，都咁啱你嘅。2020年第11條寫文嘅題目咧，係有關於人類嘅循環系統嘅。我哋嘅身體嘅各種系統喺唔同嘅組織層次咧，都係高度專門化 （highly specialized） 嘅。為咗乜嘢咧？就係促進各個系統嘅運作啦。而今次嘅題目咧，就係要我哋去討論翻人類嘅血液同埋循環系統嘅適應性特徵，又嚟到講 adaptive features 咯，係點樣有助氧氣嘅運輸咧？咁我哋今次要討論嘅範圍咧，就要涵蓋翻細胞啦、組織啦、器官等層次嘅適應性特徵嘅。咁我哋又嚟睇一睇三部曲咯。一開始啦，有啲咩嘅 keywords 啊？人類嘅血液啦、循環系統啦、適應性特徵係咩意思啦？記得之前我哋學過 SFF 嘅溫書方法啊嘛，有結構、有適應性特徵同埋有佢嘅功能嘅。咁今次嘅功能係乜嘢啊？運送氧氣。同埋咧，題目都提醒咗我哋噶啦，要喺細胞啦、組織啦、器官啦唔同嘅層次咧去做個了解嘅。咁究竟啦，有啲咩要寫，有啲咩唔使寫咧？結構啦，就係人類嘅血液同埋循環系統啦；功能啦，運送氧氣啦；而個組織嘅層次咧，分別就從細胞嘅層次紅血球啦，組織嘅層次血液啦，同埋器官嘅層次心臟去理解啦。今次嘅題目都提及咗啦，有啲嘢係唔使寫嘅，例如啦，不同嘅血管種類咧，我哋係唔需要寫嘅。而且今次講嘅功能咧，係運送氧氣啫嘛，即係話啦，例如白血球呢類型嘅細胞係負責身體防衛嘅，都係唔需要寫嘅。跟住就去到答題嘅鷹架咯，點樣可以好好咁樣將我哋學咗嘅嘢表達翻出嚟呢？咁我哋就要將紅血球咯、血液啦，同埋心臟佢哋嘅適應性特徵同佢嘅功能運送氧氣拉上關係啦。所以記緊翻 SFF 啦，結構 structure、特徵 feature 同埋功能 function 啦。喺生物科咧，我哋上次都講過噶啦，一個整合嘅溫書概念，其中一個方法就係 SFF， 將你學過嘅知識建構成為一個網絡嘅溫書方法啦。咁大家快手咧 download 翻個短文攻略筆記咧，我哋就即刻開波咯噃。今次呢個題目咧係一個描述同埋解釋嘅題目嚟嘅。第一個部分咧，我哋就先解決細胞嘅層面啦，就係紅血球啦，係咪？白血球唔使講，血小板亦都唔需要你講嘅。咁紅血球啦，望到呢個樣啦，一個橫切面嘅樣子啦，有咩咁特別呢？咁我哋先要理解翻啦，整個 SFF 嘅思考方法就係由結構講佢嘅功能，再講翻佢嘅特徵。功能呢，我哋今次要特別留意嘅，講到明係適應性特徵，即係做得好啲噶嘛，即係我哋要提及翻紅血球嘅適應性特徵，係令佢可以去運載多一啲嘅氧氣，從而啦就可以運送多一啲嘅氧氣去到我哋嘅組織嗰處啦。咁啊，紅血球有啲咩嘅特徵，同埋點樣適應佢嘅功能呢？第一啦，佢嘅特徵就係雙粒圓盤狀，為咗乜嘢啊？為咗增加表面面積同埋體積嘅比例，從而有一個快一啲嘅氣體交換，即係話啦，啲氧氣咧係能夠快一啲擴散到 diffuse 入到去我哋嘅紅血球入面嘅。好似使唔使講話啲二氧化碳快一啲離開到個紅血球呢？就唔使講，因為今次嘅題目嘅主角係氧氣啊嘛，係咪？第二個紅血球嘅特徵呢，入面就係承載住血紅蛋白 hemoglobin 啦。咁呢個特徵點樣幫助到紅血球去運送氧氣呢個功能做得好啲先？係因為血紅蛋白呢係可以同個氧氣可以好專門咁黐埋一齊嘅，就唔係淨係靠個氧氣呢係溶解咗落去個血漿嗰處。因為溶解咗，係啊，唔係你運送到氧氣。不過今次我哋要講幫助運送氧氣，即係運送得好啲噶嘛。所以我哋要講下紅血球入面嘅血紅蛋白啦。去到第三啦，紅血球啦，佢係冇細胞核同埋一啲膜結合嘅細胞器嘅，例如線粒體啦，例如 ER 啦，佢哋都係冇嘅。咁同運送氧氣有咩關係啊？就係為咗騰出更多嘅空間去容納更多嘅血紅蛋白啦。咁所以你見到呢三樣嘢係環環相扣嘅。首先就係雙粒圓盤狀， 令到啲氧氣快手可以擴散到入去個紅血球入面。入咗去紅血球之後啦，我哋有好多嘅血紅蛋白專門同個氧氣去結合嘅，咁就幫助到紅血球咧去運送氧氣俾我哋嘅身體組織啦。呢部分啦就到血液啦，血液啦就有血球細胞啦，同埋呢個血漿啦。我哋要講下運送氧氣嘅功能啦。血液就好被動嘅，俾個心臟去泵佢啦，而呢一個組織咧就能夠運載氧氣嘅。咁我哋就要諗下血液點樣去有效地去運送個氧氣俾我哋嘅身體組織呢？血液係一個流體同埋液體嘅組織，佢就可以成為一個血紅細胞嘅媒介。由於血液咧係流體同埋液體嘅組織，所以佢嘅黏度亦都較為低，從而容許血流咧喺血管入面流動嘅。咁我都想借呢個機會咧講一講啦，有關於血液咧入面係有血漿，血漿嘅主要成分就係水分，而當中咧血液嘅黏度咧其中一個影響嘅因素咧就係水分嘅多與少啦。所以咧平時一個人咧你係好少飲水，或者啦你有一個好高嘅失水嘅話咧，其實係會令到你啲血咧係好結嘅 thicker blood。從而啦就會令到你嘅血壓咧就會上升。點解啊？因為你啲血如果結塌塌嘅話啦，你個心臟係咪要泵大力啲，令到啲血液可以繼續流動落去啊？你咪會承受一個高一啲嘅血壓咯，係咪？到第三部分啦，就係去到器官嘅層次啦，就講心臟咯。心臟嘅功能咧就係泵啲血去個肺啦，同埋身體組織啦。要提一提大家咯，今次嘅主角係氧氣，所以無論係泵血去個肺啦，定係泵血去個身體組織啦，我哋嘅主角咧仍然係含氧血嘅。咁心臟有咩適應性特徵呢？心臟咧係由心臟肌肉所組成嘅，為嘅咧就係提供一個推動力去維持血流啦。我哋嘅心臟咧係從來冇休息嘅，一個人心臟停頓嘅話咧就 GG 噶啦。心臓の鼓動音は心臓は停止している。奴は完全に死んでいる。心臟咧係由鎘或者鈽咧去分成兩半嘅，一半咧就係負責運送脱氧嘅血或者缺氧血啦，去到肺部做乜嘢啊？氣體交換咯，攞氧氣咯。另一半咧就係負責運送含氧血咧，去到身體其他器官。有咗呢個特徵啦，有咩咁特別先？就係確保到你真係運送緊豐富嘅氧氣、充足嘅氧氣俾你嘅身體組織，而唔係運送一啲又有缺氧血又有含氧血嘅血液去到你嘅身體組織啦，而令到我哋嘅身體組織咧係獲得多啲嘅氧氣進行呼吸作用嘅。第三啦，就係心臟咧係連接住啲血管，係有一個管腔嘅，就為咗乜嘢啊？就係為咗分配血液去到唔同嘅器官啦。呢個特性咧係承接第二個特性噶。因為啦，我哋係將個心臟分咗左右兩邊，右邊咧就係負責處理缺氧血，而左邊咧就係負責處理含氧血嘅。好，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次咧成條題目係有關於循環系統啦，問我哋噶啦就係適應性特徵，所以記得溫翻概念整合大法啦。就係我哋之前講過啦，用個網絡去建構概念啦。而過往咧我都用雙循環作為一個例子，去話俾大家聽，讀 Bio 唔需要死記，點樣可以活學 Bio 呢？咁今次嘅題目啦，有三個部分，就係心臟、血液、血管。咁過往咧都有唔同嘅片咧，去幫大家溫翻書嘅，咁可以釋放翻多少少嘅腦袋，唔使背咁多嘢，背翻基礎嘅概念，跟住透過一啲指導性嘅題目去幫自己建構知識咧。跟住啦，我哋逐一擊破做連結咯。心臟咧就由心臟肌肉所去組成啦，咁唔同心臟肌肉嘅厚度啦，有冇咩嘅比較啊？成個心臟泵出嚟嘅血啦，佢哋嘅血壓啦，去到唔同血管嘅血流速率又有咩嘅變化呢？去到血液啦，我哋有含氧血有缺氧血，咁究竟啦，佢哋係喺心臟嘅邊個部分出現呢？又喺邊一條嘅血管出現呢？而血管啊，我哋有動脈啦、微血管啦同埋靜脈啦，三者嘅比較又如何呢？血管壁嘅厚薄啦，血管內腔嘅大細啦，入面有冇反膜啦？呢一啲嘢你又識唔識呢？跟住啦，就去到呢條題目嘅重心啦，就係轉運氧氣啦。氧氣咧有咩用啊？就係俾我哋嘅身體組織進行呼吸作用，釋放能量啦。 氧氣又喺邊度嚟㗎？就係由個肺做呼吸作用嗰度拎翻嚟啦。從而啦，我哋就可以將肺啦、氣體交換啦、二氧化碳啦、缺氧血、含氧血咧，又拉上關係咯。從而你哋見得到啦，就係成個網絡。其實成課書就係從一個概念開始嘅啫。呢個就叫做一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，主要講氧氣，下次講二氧化碳得唔得啦？梗係可以啦。仲有冇啲乜嘢可以問你啊？有關於整個循環系統或者心臟啊、血液啊、血管啊，例如啦，血管嘅適應性特徵，你又講唔講得出呢？例如啦，血流方向，你又講唔講得出呢？點解血流方向一定係單一方向呢？第三啦，今次就講氧氣啫，下次講如何踢走二氧化碳又得唔得啦？梗係可以啦。下次又講啊，血液啦，同個身體防衛有咩關係又得唔得啦？又可以啦。無論係白血球啦，定係凝血反應啦，你都一定要學翻識噶噃。咁今次呢條題目呢，就問翻循環系統啫。咁下次就問下你繁殖嘅系統啦、消化嘅系統啦、呼吸嘅系統啦。你要知道成個身體係好多系統俾你去問噶嘛，係咪？但係個關鍵就係在於一點出發啦，咁多位。咁我想借呢個機會咧，同大家賣一賣廣告啦。Faith Education 呢係有好多嘅片，去除咗講解題目之外咧，亦都幫你溫書嘅。無論你嘅目標係保命定係升 grade，都咁啱你嘅。202 Question 11 is about the human circulatory system. Our body systems are highly specialized at various levels of organization to facilitate the functioning of each system. Discuss how the adaptive features of the human blood and circulatory system facilitate the transport of oxygen. Your discussion should cover adaptive features at cellular, tissue, and organ levels. You can see that in this question, the main theme is specialization, and then we need to talk about the adaptive features. So let's go through the 3 steps to analyze the whole essay question. Which keywords do you need to highlight? Human blood and circulatory system. Adaptive features, it means that how can a particular structure perform the function well, and then transport of the oxygen and levels of the organization. And precaution and the focus of the essay, we need to talk about the structure, including human blood and circulatory system, and what's the function is to transport of oxygen, and what's the levels of organization is about the cellular level, red blood cells, tissue level, the blood, and the organ level, the heart. And in this question, it's also mentioned that we do not need to talk about the details of the different types of the blood vessels. Also, we do not need to talk about the red blood cells or the blood platelets because they are not involved in the transport of oxygen, right? And what about the scaffolding? For the essay question, we need to present our idea in a systematic format. So we need to identify the adaptive features of the red blood cells, blood, and heart to facilitate the transport of the oxygen. That's why we need to put the structure, features, and functions together. So let's download the essay writing worksheet and then we move on to the question. This question is about the description and the explanation. Firstly, we need to identify the adaptive features of the red blood cells to facilitate the transport of oxygen. Remember, the thinking logic is that we talk about the structure, and then we think about the functions, and we think about the features, particularly the adaptive features to perform the function well. However, in the essay writing order, we need to talk about the structure and then mention the adaptive features and then to explain that how could they help to perform the function well. So for the red blood cell, you can see the top view and the section of the red blood cells. So what is the function of the red blood cells? They help us to carry oxygen. Yes, I know. However, when we talk about the adaptive features, we need to talk about something higher, more, better. So for the function, our focus is that to carry more oxygen in the cells and then transport more oxygen to the tissues. Therefore, in the features, so we do not just talk about, there are several features of the red blood cell. We also need to talk about how do these features help the red blood cell perform the function well. Firstly, the red blood cells, they are biconcave disc shape. Therefore, the surface area to volume ratio is increased. For what? For faster gas exchange. The oxygen can diffuse into the red blood cell faster. Secondly, red blood cells are equipped with hemoglobin, and the hemoglobin, they are specialized for binding with the oxygen. Therefore, we don't just rely on the oxygen themselves, they dissolve into the plasma of the blood. The red blood cell, they are actively playing a role to carry the oxygen. Thirdly, in the red blood cell, nucleus and the membrane-bound organelles are absent. Therefore, there are more space to hold more hemoglobin. So you can see that in these three parts, they are a story already. First of all, the red blood cell, they are bicontinent disc shape, and then they can uptake the oxygen faster. And when the oxygen is uptaken by the red blood cell, they are bind with the hemoglobin. And because the red blood cell, they do not have such nucleus or the membrane-bound organelles, for example, the mitochondria or endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, therefore there are more spaces for more hemoglobin. So you can see the idea that the greater the surface area and then specialized for binding with oxygen to hold more hemoglobin. The second level is the tissue level. We talk about the blood. So in the blood, we know that it contains the plasma and the blood cells, and the blood is a bit passive because they are just being pumped by the heart, and at the same time they carry oxygen. And the blood perform the function well because they can transport oxygen to the tissues efficiently. But how? The blood, they are fluid or liquid tissues containing the red blood cells. Because they are liquid, therefore the viscosity is a bit low. It allows the flowing of the blood in the blood vessels. And I would like to grab this chance to talk about the viscosity. The viscosity of the blood is related to the water content of the blood. And you need to remind that the plasma, the main component of the plasma is the water. Therefore, the possible question variation is talking about the viscosity of the blood. It may be related to the lower water intake or the higher water loss. If you do not drink water for a long time, you may suffer from a thicker blood. And then you will suffer from higher blood pressure. Thicker blood, they have a higher viscosity. That means your heart, they need to pump forcefully to make sure that the blood, they can really flow in the blood vessel. And then you will suffer from hypertension. For the third level is about the organ level, and then we study the heart. The heart, it plays a very active role to pump the blood to the lungs and body tissues. And then we need to know that the main function, we need to talk about the transport of oxygen. Therefore, no matter we talk about the lungs or the body tissues, we need to talk about that the heart can help us to transport the oxygenated blood to the tissues. So any adaptive features of the heart. Firstly, the heart is made up of the cardiac muscle, the heart muscle, and then it gives a driving force, the pumping force, to maintain the blood flow. The cardiac muscle, they never stop pumping, that means contracting and relaxing. Once they really stop, you GG.
心臓の鼓動音は心臓は停止している。奴は完全に死んでいる。
And then in the heart, there are septums or the wall dividing the heart into two halves. One half for carrying the oxygenated blood to the lungs for what? For gas exchange, to uptake the oxygen. And the other half for carrying oxygenated blood to body parts for what? For respiration, to release energy. So we know that is the way to increasing the efficiency of oxygen transport to the body tissues. We can make sure that the blood being pumped to the body tissue, they are oxygenated, and make sure that the body tissues, they can obtain more oxygen. Thirdly, the blood vessels with lumen, it acts as channel for distribution of the blood to various organs. So let's talk about the curriculum mapping. This question starts from the circulatory system, and it talks about the adaptive features. So remember how to use the network to construct your knowledge, the structure, feature, and function method. And in the past, I also made some video about how can we understand the whole concept of the double circulation without rote learning. We can spare some space in our brain to think rather than just memorize all the ideas and make your life easier. And then in this question, we talk about the heart, blood, and blood vessel. And luckily, we do not need to talk about the different types of blood vessels in this question. However, in next question, it may ask you the blood vessels, right? So let's talk about these three elements in the circulatory system: heart, blood, and blood vessels. For the heart, it's made up of cardiac muscle, and then we can compare the cardiac muscle on the left side, on the right side of the heart. For example, the left ventricle, the right ventricle, the atrial muscle, so we can compare the cardiac muscle, and then to understand the difference of the blood pressure. And then we can also study the blood flow velocity in different blood vessels. And in the blood, we have the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. So what is the comparison? Or where can we find the oxygenated blood or the deoxygenated blood? And for the blood vessels, we have the arteries, capillaries, and the vein. So we can also compare them. The vessel wall thickness, the lumen size, and then the presence of the valves. There are lots of things for us to compare. All of them are related to their functions as well. So we call the adaptive features. And then we go back to the main theme of the question is about the oxygen transport. For the body tissues, we provide oxygen to them for respiration. And then we have the lungs for the gas exchange. Not only uptake the oxygen, but also remove the carbon dioxide. So you can see that all the thing is just like a network. We can ask you about the lungs next time for the gas exchange. And in the past, there are questions asked you about the adaptive features of the lungs and the leaves. And they ask you to do the comparison. And in this question, any other possible question variation, it can ask you to compare the adaptive features of the blood vessels, the blood flow direction, the removal of the carbon dioxide, and even the body defense related to the blood. This time, we do not need to talk about the red blood cell and the blood platelet because they are not related to the oxygen transport. However, red blood cell, the B cell, the T cell, they are related to the body defense. And for the blood platelets, they are involved in the blood clotting. It's also related to the body defense. And surely, for this question, only ask you about the human circulatory system. But what about next time? Ask you about the digestive system, reproductive system, a lot of system for us to study.